All right, the watch list for February 10th, which will be Wednesday. You can see it's a little choppy out there. The market's not sure what to do. Looked like it was, it closed here, talking about the SPY, and then gaps all the way down to here. So we go to 5-minute candles. Hold on, I have after hours on there. All right. So remember yesterday, that afternoon rally we had ended up taking out the highs of the day after we were looking like we were going to oblivion, and gaps down today and rallied. And ended up taking out the highs of both days before settling in. So, I mean, it's not a clear direction. I've just got lines drawn at the recent lows and the recent highs, and it's quite the range. So there's a lot of good trades to be had right now. So as a day trader, I certainly can't complain. Before I go into the list, I got to share with you Tesla because it gave one of my favorite setups ever. And if you watched my video last night, I said I wanted to watch Tesla. I also said I'm going to start following up with how we trade some of these on an intraday basis rather than just put out an overnight list. So TSLA gave a perfect example of what we look for. My favorite thing to happen when I've got a stock that's way ahead of itself to the downside and it goes on bounce watch, my favorite thing is a gap down. All right. So let me go to intraday candles here. Here I am showing you 2-minute candles on Tesla. And in the pre-market, when I was going over potential gappers, usually I go over gaps up looking for gap and go candidates. But I also threw Tesla on watch as what I call, it's kind of a mouthful, but I call a gap down bounce play setup. And in short, what that means is I'm looking for something that's already down several days in a row, starting to get fast to the downside, and then it gaps down. What I want to see is initial selling, and you had massive volume here, by the way, initial selling, and then back up through the open, I go long, okay? Which I just called this over the high of the day, actually, which is the open was 142.26, high of day was 142.32, so I just said over the high of the day, 142.33, worst case, low of day, stop. And look what happened. So there's the trigger right there. So that's about 3-4 minutes in, and man, it was just off to the races. There was never a point where you had to say, oh my God, I'm going to lose money on this trade. I mean, it just shot up $2-3 in the first few minutes. Ended up moving up over $17 a share on a little over $1 a share risk. The entry and the stop, I think it was like $1.30-ish stop. So that may end up being my biggest call of the year as far as actual dollar amount. Not percentage, but actual dollar amount. And Tesla came back in, but I don't care, right? We're day traders. So I wanted to share that with you because that is one of my favorite things to happen when I'm looking for a bounce play. And I get a lot of emails say, yeah, you put out these nightly lists, but how do you trade them on an intraday basis? Going forward, whenever one that meets all the parameters I'm looking for and I feel like is a great trading lesson, I'll try to throw them in these watch list videos for the next night. All right? All right, so here we go. What's the list for tomorrow? I'm going to throw NAT on watch. Didn't give a trade today, but it had that big volume spike, went all the way up to 1289, and then today hit a low of 1101. That's a pretty good range. This just goes on bounce watch for tomorrow. In other words, if we get a narrow range for a little while, and then it takes out the highs of the day, the people that were in on this big move or saw this big move and missed it, however you want to word it, generally might pile back in if that lights up the new highs ticker out of a narrow range tomorrow. SIEN gapped up this morning on news. Actually, that was yesterday, wasn't it? Anyway, and then, yeah, it gapped up yesterday on news, and then today sold off. So you've printed basically 2 red daily candles. You basically have a gap fill or close to a gap fill. I'm going to watch this one to turn back up on Wednesday, all right? Only with a proper intraday setup, and I won't fight the market. Some bounce plays here, VNET. Kind of getting fast to the downside and nearing, these were the July lows, which was around $15. So if you get down below these lows, I'll be interested, and I like to have a line on my chart. I'll be interested in a possible reversal if we get below these lows. I'll be looking for an intraday turn back up. All right, that's VNET. BECN, just another red day after the gap up, so 3 red days. I'm just going to be watching that one for a bounce, preferably with the market, right? MOMO, you can see it's at all-time lows not that long ago, an IPO, it looks like late 2014, and starting to get fast to the downside. So I always put something like that on bounce watch. SUPN, big day, inside day, another inside day. So it's kind of starting to get tight. I'm watching that one for a turn back up. BOOT continuing to kind of, after the initial sell-off, ended up close to this, 3-4 day high. So I still like this in the 864 area. It's holding up very well. All right, that's BOOT. GoPro. GPRO. Let's go to 15-minute candles because you can see it better. GoPro yesterday had a big move, so I said it was on watch today. I never did find any trades in it today. Gapped down with the market and then ripped. So I was focused on Tesla this morning, but I like the fact that then this put in a lower high, and then in the afternoon took out that lower high. So I just like it over this little flag here. It might just take out all these recent highs. Let's do a trend line here. All right, so if you get over this little flag here, which I'll give you a number, let's see, around 11, I'd like it to break the half, so I'm going to say 1152-ish, and whenever I do that, I've got it already written in my notes. So around 1152, that might start knocking down these catalysts as it breaks this trend line. All right, so that's GoPro. GPRO. All right, what's next? DATA. Also gave a setup a lot like Tesla this morning, but I missed it because I was focused on Tesla. But I like this over this 2-day high now. I still think this is overdone to the downside and looks really good. You kind of have an intraday cup and handle today. So if this gets back up through 40, becomes interesting to me for a long trade. IMMU gapped up, ripped, but gave it all back. The next day even farther, and then today. It gave this big spike on an intraday basis. So now it becomes interesting to me. Again, I like it over 215. It kind of broke a trend line here on this spike. So this one's worth watching for another push over 215. That's IMMU. THST. Now this is a super low volume stock. I mean, this massive spike here did that on not even 3 million shares. So you can see how thin this stock is. I think they had earnings. I'm not positive. And it made this big move, which was a big move percentage-wise on 243,000 shares. And let's see, let's go to 15s. And you can see whenever you look at candles and they look like paint splatter, right? Not even candles, but just then you know you've got a thin stock. So keep that in mind if you're going to mess with this one at all. But I think maybe you get a red to green or something like that on this one. As I'm talking about, I'm already kind of regretting having it on the watch list, but it doesn't cost me anything to have it on a chart. Maybe tomorrow it starts to get really high relative volume. And I also want to watch SolarCity, SCTY, which was selling off into earnings, closed at $26.35. As I'm talking to you right now, it's at $17.86. So I'll bring up the weekly chart. I mean, it's probably right about here. So it's gapping down big. You never know. We're going to play that as a gap play tomorrow and see what it does. We're going to watch it, I should say, as a gap play tomorrow and see what it does. All right. So I'm going to leave the list at that. Hopefully we'll find some nice gappers to trade in the morning as well. Trade safe, guys. I always say this. Mark Douglas, who wrote Trading in the Zone, to me the three most important words that I took out of that book and I share with my chat room members all the time are the three most important words. Anything can happen. All right. You have to trade with that. That should be ringing in your brain the whole time you're trading. Anything can happen. So what that does is make sure that you choose the correct position size, expecting that anything can happen. In other words, you can always be wrong. Choose your position size wisely. Think about how much you can lose if the trade goes bad before you think about how much you can make. All right, trade with that in mind, and you won't have any account blowouts, which can end trading careers. You got to stay in the game before you can master the game. All right, I'm done babbling. We'll talk to you tomorrow.